Hi everyone, my name is Philip Hill. I'm Principal Bassoon of the Midland Odessa Symphony, and I'm going to take you through my reed making process. In this video, I'll show you how I glue my reeds and ream out the bottom so that it fits just right on the bocal. So, in this reed, it has its wires on there. It's beveled just like I did in the last video, and it's on the pin so the form is right. Now I just need to put the hot glue on it. Some people use string and glue. I just use hot glue by itself. So because of that, I have a couple unusual tools that not everyone uses. First, I have a little candle here to heat the glue even more than the hot glue gun does so that it spreads around the reed a little nicer. I have some ice water, very, very cold water, to set the glue. And I have a flathead screwdriver to make the glue flat against the reed so that it creates a nice little handle, or that traditional turban look that most people make when they wrap the reed in string. All right, let's go through all that. So the first thing I do with this reed at this stage is I'm going to, as always, check the placement of my wires to make sure everything is in the right spot. So let's do that first. And then once I know that everything is in the right spot, I'm gonna take that bottom wire, that third wire at the bottom, and make it really, really, really tight as it can possibly be. And that's because when I put that hot glue on there, it's gonna heat up the wood and heat up the metal and make it expand a little bit. And I don't want it to expand so much that it breaks apart. And then I'm going to cut that excess off the wire and cut it really, really short. So there should be about, I don't know, that looks like maybe 1 to 2 millimeters, probably 2 millimeters of excess wire there on the bottom wire. And then I'm going to take that part and I'm going to fold it up. So now it's folded up so that when I put glue on there, and maybe if I don't put that much glue, I don't have that wire shooting out through the glue and we don't poke our fingers and cut our fingers. So there we go. We have our wire set up and the glue gun is hot and ready to use. And by the way, while this glue gun was heating up, that's when I lit the candle, got my ice water, got all the other things set up, just to save a little bit of time. Okay, so here we go. While we're gluing and while we're setting the glue and doing all these things, always keep the reed spinning like this. If you always keep it spinning, it's going to ensure a more even spread on the reed. So one hand is always spinning while the other hand is working to add the glue, to get the screwdriver, get all those things. Okay, so here we go. We're adding a bunch of glue around the portion that has the wire. And actually, let's move it closer to the camera so you can get a better picture of what I'm doing here. Okay, so we've got the most glue around the wire, and then as we work our way up to the middle wire, we don't need as much glue because that part's going to be flat anyway. Okay, so when I first put the glue on there, it's going to look really messy. It's going to look super uneven. There might be parts of the wood that are still showing. And that's why we use the candle and the screwdriver. Okay, so once I have all my glue on there, I'm going to let it sit on the candle. So now I can use both hands to spin it around. And at this point, you're kind of just, it almost is like rotisserie chicken or something. You're just turning, the piece of meat is turning over the fire as it's heating up. Okay, so that fire is going to help spread it around. If you want to use an alcohol lamp instead, that would work just fine. Or any sort of significant heat source that is safe and is easy to use. I like these small candles because they can just sit there, they're mobile, If I want to move them around, or if I want to just let it sit, I can do that. Okay. And they're not very expensive at all. Okay, so that is spreading around way more than it was before. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I'll take the screwdriver and I'm going to flatten out that higher part of where the glue was. And let me pull it away. Okay, and if there might be some glue that drops, that's why I have this towel here, because I don't want it to drop. I don't want it to drop directly on the table. Okay, so now I'm going to drop the screwdriver in the ice water. That helps to set the glue on the screwdriver, and then it's easier to peel it off the screwdriver. So here's what it looks like now. And then it's probably going to be uneven again because humans make mistakes. It's human error. So let's put it back over the fire again, over the candle, and that will help spread it out nice and evenly. Okay. So then, once that looks nice and even, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Yes, it looks really nice, and you know that's why people get different colors of string and stuff like that. But really the point is for the reed to be sealed. You want at the end of the day, no matter what shape it is, you want that whole part of the reed to be sealed so there are no leaks in your reed. The only holes in your reed should be at the tip and at the bottom side, at the bottom of the tube. That's the only places where you should have holes in your reed. So that's the purpose of the glue. Okay, now that that is nice and formed, let's take it away from the fire and spin it around just a little bit more just to see. Really, we're just looking at the shape here. And then we can take the ice water and put the reed in there. Do not put the whole reed in your ice water. Don't just dunk it in there as if you're soaking the reed getting ready to play on it. Only put the part that has glue on it in the water, because this is still technically a dry stage of working on the reed, and we don't want to make it soak up and swell up, but we want it to stay dry until we're actually ready to cut it open and play on it. So I just hold it in there for about, I don't know, 15 seconds, something like that. And if your water is cold enough and you hold it in there long enough, really just 15 seconds, you should be able to just put your fingers on that glue, and it should be rock hard. It should be very hard. It should not be hot. You shouldn't burn your fingers. So you should be able to just, and I just put my fingers here to test just to make sure that everything is set. Sometimes you'll get little air bubbles inside the glue, and then it will make the shape really uneven. And again, that's not a big deal as long as the reed is sealed, then you're fine. Okay, so there we go. Now the pin might be hot. The pin that you were using to hold the reed, that might be kind of hot. So I'm going to take the reed, put it back on that pin, loosen the pin from the mandrel, and then pick the reed and the pin up by holding the reed so I don't burn my hand. And then I put it back on the drying rack here. And it should take, I usually wait at least a day for it to dry and then ream it out. So let's do some reaming now. I'm going to blow this out and unplug the glue gun. Okay, so the reed has been sitting for a day, and also, by the way, this screwdriver, it's smoke from the candle. This screwdriver, it's got some glue on it, and just take it off. Once I've set it in the water, it makes it easier to take the glue off. Okay, so our reed has been sitting for a day, and it's nice and dry, and it looks like this. Okay, so what we're going to do is, of course, like always, check the wire placement. Always checking our wire placements, because that is such an important factor of whether our reed is going to play well, if our wires are in the correct spot. So let's look at that just to make sure. Now we can't check the bottom wire anymore because there's glue on it, so you only need to worry about checking the top two wires. So we look there and it's in the right spot. We're going to tighten it. I like really tight wires. I think I've said that in another video, but I just want to reiterate that. I like tight wires. It just makes the reed play really well. So I've checked the placement, I've tightened the wires, and I'm also checking how far, how far the reed goes down on the pin. So pretty much any pin you buy for reed making is going to have a little notch down here. And that notch is about where I like my reeds to sit. And that's also how far I want them to go on the bocal. It might be a little different for you. Maybe you like yours to go a little farther or not as far. That's how far I like to go. So if you notice, the pin is skinnier up here than it is down here, which means the bigger the opening of the reed, the farther it's going to sit on the pin. So if we ream out the bottom and take more cane out of there, it's going to sit farther and farther and farther on the pin. So let's do that. I've got two different types of reamers. And yes, I do recommend getting both. The first one I'm going to use is this spiral reamer. It looks like a screw. That takes out a lot of cane. And then I have a diamond reamer, similar to the file I used to bevel. It's the same material, just a different shape. And this takes out less cane at one time, so I use this to finish it. So I'm going to take that reed and go in with the spiral reamer. Now I use my pliers to hold the reed because that allows me to get a good grip on the reed and ream out without the reed slipping around or moving anywhere. It'll stay right where it's supposed to stay if I hold it with pliers, and I can freely ream as I'd like to. Okay, so to get a bunch out at one time so I'm not reaming forever, I like to go counterclockwise when I push in. And then once I've pushed in there, don't go too far. You can always take more out, but you can never put any back in. So just start simple. We push in counterclockwise and then we pull out clockwise. And you can see all the cane coming out here. Okay. All right, and then I'm going to check with this forming pin to see how much more I need to go. Now I don't need to go that far anymore because you can see the notch on the pin is right there below the reed now. So that means I'm going to use my diamond grit reamer to finish it. Now I normally don't use pliers for this stage. I can usually get a good grip inside the reed to take the cane out without the reed getting stuck on there. So just do a little bit. Again, not too much at one time. You can always take more out. You can never put it back in. So let's check once again. If it does go a little past the notch, that's okay. You don't want it to go too far, or at least for me. You should decide how far you want your reeds to go on your bocal. And this needs just a little bit more. If I go too far, those reeds usually they seal just fine and they still play in tune. And that does affect the intonation, by the way. If your reed doesn't go on your bocal that far, you're essentially making the instrument longer and your pitch is going to be lower. If your reed goes on really far, you're essentially making the instrument shorter, smaller instrument, then the pitch is higher. So this is an important stage. But okay, so there we go. Now the reed has been reamed and the bottom is more open, so now it sits lower on the pin. And by the way, one quick little thing. Notice my wires are folded down now, and I kind of do that as a habit. I don't even realize. These wires, however, are pointed out. And I do that to let myself know if I've reamed it or not. I can always check by just putting it on I can see based on whether it's on a forming pin, but that's just something I do. Once I'm ready to ream, I fold those wires down. If I haven't reamed it yet, I leave them sitting up so I know what work is still left to do on the reed. And then in the box it goes. So that's how I glue my reeds and then ream them to fit just right on the bocal. Thank you so much for watching.